Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Multi-Location Marketing Leader. I'm your host, Erin Martin, and this episode is brought to you by Netsertive, a marketing partner who can help you run better localized marketing programs. Today, our guest is Danielle Yuthas. She's the Vice President of Marketing at SpeedPro. Danielle, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And so, just to kick us off and give our viewers a little bit of context, can you share more about your role and what you do and oversee at SpeedPro?
Sure. SpeedPro is a large format printing franchise. We have 124 locations in the US, and we also have a sister brand in Canada. And so we provide vehicle wraps, wall murals, signage, trade show booths, really anything that's large and printed that is for branding efforts, experiential marketing, really the whole gamut. So we focus primarily on B2B. And the really fun part about it is that we're marketing to marketers. And so it's really just a fun and creative space. Everybody is, a lot of creative minds all coming together.
I love that. And yeah, similarly being, a vendor in the space, I also get to market to marketers, which I hear you there. It is awesome to be able to just live and breathe marketing every day. Awesome. And so I know that you started your career on the agency side of things, which gave you like a ton of experience with SEO, digital advertising, and lead gen. And so it sounds like 2022 was one of the best years for Speed Pro in terms of revenue. So I'm wondering if you could just kick us off and tell us a little bit more about what made that possible, how you got those results, and kind of like what you stepped into when you joined the company versus where you've gotten in terms of marketing programs.
Sure. We did have a great year in 2022, our best year ever. And in that time, there were a lot of factors at play. Of course, everyone was coming off of COVID and getting back into the office. There were some mergers and acquisitions, and with that came some rebrands. So there were a lot of factors in the space in general at the time. And SpeedPro during that time also ramped up our lead generation efforts right at the same time to be able to capture the increase in demand. So the pairing of those two ended up working out really strongly for us.
Nice. And when you talk about ramping up your lead gen program, like what specifically did that entail?
Sure. I did have a background in digital marketing, lead generation, and scaling marketing technology. And when I came into Speed Pro, they had previously had all different sites and all different domains, and they had just kind of come together onto one domain. So they were just starting out a new website. So the first thing that we did was ramp up our SEO efforts, local SEO, national SEO, or just product focused, industry focused. We put a lot of our marketing fund efforts behind SEO. And we also had some locations that were running PPC. So we took those locations, we figured out what they were doing, how they were doing it. We collected the data from them, and we were able to expand that program out. And we have a very substantial number of owners on that lead generation program right now. And with that, we also incentivize them to participate by offering funds from the marketing fund to supplement their campaigns.
Yeah, and I love that program idea to be able to incentivize them. So I'm wondering, can you share a little bit more about what that program looked like how you developed it and then rolled it out to get adoption?
Mhm. It actually came to us as a suggestion from our regional developers and from conversations with owners directly. They were saying that they wanted to run lead generation campaigns, but that they thought that it was a pretty high investment level for where they're at, coming from not really being used to running a lot of these campaigns previously. So they hadn't proven it out that it worked. Even though we had data from other locations, they didn't know for sure what it would be like for their location. So we wanted to offer them enough ad spend to be able to get to a point where they could see results. Because sometimes if you spend too low on PPC, if you're under, maybe for us, under a $500 a month mark, you're
Mhm.
not going to be able to get enough results to see enough returns. So
Yeah.
we offer them a chance where if they put in a certain amount, then we would also contribute from the marketing fund dollars to participating locations on top of that. And those dollars were not toward management fee. They were not toward any kind of other administration or anything. They were directly to ad spend so that owners could get a feel for what that level of ad spend would provide for them at their location. And then it ended up being so popular that we've added dollars to it and expanded it to other locations and really to other programs as well, kind of as we went along.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And so how did you track or how do you currently track that adoption too in terms of being able to see the ad spend, understand what's happening across locations? How do you manage that?
We work with a PPC vendor that helps us manage that. And we also do a lot internally where we have at our convention, you can sign up on a QR code or you can
Mm,
visit the booth of the vendor at convention. You can also sign up anytime by filling out a form online. So there's all a lot of different avenues that make it really easy for owners to sign up. They don't have to do a lot. They can still opt into the specific product categories that they want to sell without having to spend a lot of time managing it. One of the reasons that we set it up this way also is so that if owners work with our preferred vendor, then they can use these match dollars. And then that incentivizes everyone to be on the same platform and the same provider. And that allows us to be able to get the data out of that. Whereas if we had all different vendors across the country, it would be a lot more difficult to get that visibility, not knowing their management fee structures and having a lot of variation there.
yeah, more silos, more pain usually. That's awesome. So did you have to revamp your FDD for this program at all or like rethink how that was structured?
Well, in our FDD, we had just increased the marketing fund. So
Mhm.
that was covered in just their marketing fund dollars. So we really did not need to do anything additional because it is completely an opt in program. And
Yeah.
so owners can, it's completely up to them if they want to opt in or not. In the beginning, we did it for they had to participate for a minimum of 6 months at a minimum spend, again, so that they could get enough results to get momentum. But now that most studios have at least tried it, they can kind of just come on and come off of it.
Yeah. And that minimum timeline is key. That's so good that you had that in there. I often see people not put in like minimums of how long you need to run something. And that's how long it takes to usually, get the learning machines going, the algorithms like prove whether it's going to be successful or not. You can't be doing, a month or 2 month flight and just like call it successful or unsuccessful based on
Exactly. And it really helps to also have owners all together on a same platform or same type of program so that they can compare results and talk to each other and dial in their own keywords and everything based on what they see. Because franchisees going out and saying that they had success with it and talking about the results and talking about the clients that they landed from it is going to be more compelling for everyone to be able to jump onto the program than telling them the number of clicks and the number of impressions and the number of, corporate type metrics and corporate type messaging that you can give out there. Having franchisees sell it to each other really makes a huge difference when they're seeing great results and when everyone's happy. So that helps a lot too.
yeah, makes your job a little bit easier. And so what's working for you guys right now in terms of digital advertising? Is it the usual search display, social, or are you guys doing any video advertising? Like what does that mix kind of look for you guys right now?
We are a very visual business, so we want to get into more video. We have some videos out there, but we want to do more video, more display. But what we're really finding a lot of success with right now is just in basic Google PPC ads,
Nice. Yep.
basic search, and SEO, just search results.
Yeah, you did mention SEO and like all the initiatives that you had done at the national and local level a little bit earlier. Can you dive into that a little bit more? And specifically, what did that entail? Was it like more content? Was it working on, the whole website and the technical things needed? Like what did that entail?
It's a whole combination. We did a lot of content. We had a foundation of tons and tons of content that we are continuing to build on. We did look at all of the technical aspects and, updating where we had remnant code and where we had, some broken links and some of your standard stuff there. And then we also did schema and local listings, and we kind of went as far as we could go with a lot of that. And then another fun thing that we've done recently when we're talking about video is we shot and added a bunch of video of FAQs to the website. So we have
Mm.
FAQ in video and text format. So if people are asking, what a certain type of banner stand is, or how to do something, or what kind of materials to use for something, to be able to get those FAQs out there in both medias, we found has been working well for us too.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's an maybe underutilized, maybe not underknown aspect of SEO is like if you can post something on Google and make sure that everything's tagged correctly, descriptions are correct, it kind of matches with your content plan, like that's a lot of the Google juice. That's going to help with SEO if you can get a lot of videos that are either then embedded on your website or just on YouTube, like that all plays into helping that online visibility and discoverability for
And
sure.
the search volume is lower on some of those FAQs and longer tail kind of questions, but those buyers are really high intent
Yeah.
buyers at that point.
That's awesome. So how'd you go about the content planning perspective and like figuring out those FAQs or the questions that people were answering? Was it just, traditional keyword research? Like how did you guys approach
It was a whole combination of, okay, what in a practical sense do we think that our customers want to know? Because we do sell so many different products to so many different audiences. So we looked at, okay, what are the questions that we're actually getting a lot? What specs do I need to design my vehicle wrap to? And some of those kind of things that are more practical things. And then we also looked at search volume along with that and how we can tie that in. And then we also wanted to do some thought leadership kind of things with it and add in some trends pieces or idea kind of things. If you don't know what to bring to your trade show booth, if we can have some ideas and examples for clients to click through, it might give them a better idea of what they actually want. So we try to approach it really from all angles and get out of just doing, churning blog content and make it more into a intentional usability type application for it.
Yeah, nice. And one thing that you had mentioned earlier too, I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned more like experiential marketing. So, like, what are some things that you're seeing in terms of, not just the traditional banners and advertising, but like what's one of the experiential type things that you're seeing or selling more of?
Out of home advertising is getting so popular, and it's like the digital world and this out of home world are coming together, and there's a lot of big activations in that space. And it used to be out of home was a billboard or something like that. Now you're seeing on the street where it's something that has a vehicle wrap, a street graphic, an event tent. It's kind of bringing things all together, especially in pop up kind of experiences. We've seen a lot of traction with that. And as events are coming back, people are getting really creative and doing a lot of really eye catching things. We do the graphics for South by Southwest. And so we're getting ready for
Mm.
that coming up. And so at that, we really get to see what all the trends in experiential really are. So that's really a fun time for us too.
Wow. So the actual South by Southwest event, like you're like putting on all of the graphics for
They're
that.
just like the regular, signage and graphics and some of those kind of pieces that are sort of the behind the scenes pieces.
That's awesome. Do you get to attend?
Someone from the studio, I'm sure, is attending. I don't think we're attending from corporate this year.
That's fun. I love that. Cool. And then shifting gears to social, one thing I noticed you mentioned is that you use Google AMP, which is kind of like an employee engagement platform. You can probably share a little bit more better than I, because I know that We've used it in the past with varying degrees of success. So, can you share a little bit more about that and how you guys use it?
Sure. For social media, we have two different plans or programs. One is a managed social program where franchisees sign up. We do all their social media management for them. We do all the posting for them and they never touch theirs. Or if they want to add posts on their own, they can. And we manage that through a platform that's called eClincher. That's relatively similar, but it allows you to post all the content, but you can also put in dynamic links. So each link will go to that location's homepage or product page or whatever. So we use that for that. And then we also have a separate plan with Gaglamp where we load all of the content for the month into it with all the photos and captions and everything, but we don't publish it to the owner pages. The owners can go in and publish it to their own pages so they can pick and choose which content they want, or they can edit it and add something personal or add their own photo or something like that. So it's not just automatically pushed onto their pages. So they can do it either way, whether they want it to be totally hands off or whether they want to have a little bit more control over it. But we found that it works really well for, different types of owners.
Nice. Yes, love that. And then I think the one other piece of kind of to round out kind of the digital marketing plan, you mentioned some email marketing. So can you share a little bit more about what you have going there?
Yes, we also have a managed program for email marketing. We're on a marketing automation platform and we're trying to integrate it in with our point of sale system. So we just went through that whole process of working through some bugs in the integration and everything. And so we offer the platform to anyone who's on our technology feed. And so they can use it themselves and create their own newsletters and content. Or we can do the same thing where we manage all the content for them. We do a monthly newsletter. We do some transactional kind of things like estimate follow ups, some industry kind of specific things, all kinds of different content that we'll have preloaded into it for owners to be able to pick and choose what they want to use or to have us email their clients on their behalf because the studios just get so busy that as much as they want to write their own newsletters and do their own thing, they don't, and that doesn't necessarily make sense for everyone in the whole system to take the time to write one monthly newsletter.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a lot of, every aspect of kind of digital marketing covered in terms of an easy plug and play way for an owner to just run it with like, you guys put the strategy together, which is awesome because then it's the marketers actually doing it correctly. And so how do you coach and kind of roll out all of these different things and like keep them up to date on how it works? Where to go for things. Like there's a lot of feedback loop and education related to that.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's based on communication is the hard part, is very, very difficult because the studios are so busy and there's all this different information about all these different programs. So even if they come in for training, we have all different options and all different technology and all these different things going on. So it's very critical for us to be consistent and clear in our messaging. We put everything out in our written newsletter, in standalone emails, in a video announcement. And then we have been also going out onto the road in a couple of different markets to provide a little bit more education and hands on training. So we've been working a lot on the communication piece and then building that trust and having the results speak for itself to other owners is really how we build it up. And there are some programs that have lower adoption at first, and it takes a while for them to slowly get off the ground, but we just keep nurturing them and keep adding value as much as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then on the flip side, how are you tracking success? Like, and I asked this in the lens of it's interesting because B2B marketing, like there's a lot of similar motions and like playbooks to B2C. Like, the tactics are the same. You're doing digital marketing, you need to nurture and educate locations. But on the flip side, there's also it's different. Like there are nuances and differences between B2B and B2C marketing. So I'm just
Mhm.
curious for you as a marketing leader, like what are the main things that you're looking at from a measurement and KPI perspective and keeping a pulse up?
It is challenging, I'll give you that. I came from massage and fitness and lifestyle brands. So I
Uh-huh.
know we knew if someone purchased this intro offer, this was the percentage that was going to convert, that we were going to retain, that was it. Here's the churn rate, here's their estimated lifetime value. And the predictive modeling was a lot easier. And with what we have at SpeedPro, if someone is purchasing a vehicle wrap or a fleet of vehicle wraps now, and then they're purchasing signage and trade show booths and other things later, and trying to figure out what those are and what those customer personas are, it's not very straightforward because they can be such different types of clients and such large and custom type projects. We track everything: phone calls from the website, form fills, all the standard marketing, cost per click, cost per acquisition kind of things. And now we're trying to extend that the next step further, which would be tracking the actual ROI. But it's very difficult because we do have all different owners using the point of sale system a little bit differently.
Mm.
And the projects are very highly custom. So it's very difficult to standardize anything in the point of sale system that's going to allow you to do that. So we're bringing in a data consultant right now, and we're working on trying to build a data lake to be able to get to that point where we can provide that level of detail.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like that's the hard part of ROAS or ROI is you can see the revenue or like somehow, get the revenue, but it's the cost piece that always gets messed up, which then, throws off the whole calculation. So, like being able to do apples to apples entry or like automated, collection of that cost to be able to get the correct, ROI number you're looking for. So, I feel you
Yeah.
there.
And you would think it'd be easier with the higher dollar projects,
Yeah.
but it's actually harder with the higher dollar value projects to be able to track them, the origin all the way back, as it is where if somebody's just B2C buying the one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Which makes me think about integrations in general. And I know you mentioned, like, even with the email integration in your POS system, you had a hiccup. Like, what was that specific hiccup and how did you guys overcome it? If you can share.
Integrations are always tough, and different technology platforms that are not used to being integrated. We're on a point of sale system that's very specific to the printing industry. And so it's not something that everybody's worked with. If you work with, HubSpot or Active Campaign or, any of the common email systems, they're not used to having to talking to each other. And like with most dev projects, you have to try it a few different ways and run into different issues and whatever. But getting developers together and getting it all sorted out is just kind of part of the process.
Yeah. Previously in your career, you've got the ton of that agency experience. You worked at Ace Hardware and WellBiz Brands before SpeedPro. So, wondering if you could share any lessons learned or experiences from that time in your career that you've kind of brought with you to SpeedPro.
Sure. I think the main thing was learning the foundation and the basics of how to keep up with the Google algorithm changes, how to learn what's new in Google PPC ads. It does change over time. And so I learned that foundation in the very beginning of my career when I was working at an agency here in Denver. And then once I learned that, I continued to build on it. And I still maintain my Google Ads certification even now, even though I'm not totally hands-on with it, just so that I can have better experience in kind of overseeing the campaigns and knowing what's going on and understanding the lingo and the changes that are happening. So that was very critical in that arena. And then I've also been very fortunate to be exposed to all kinds of different clients on the agency side, and then brands that were so diverse, going from Ace Hardware, where, it's brick and mortar and they are a household name brand, and, kind of what goes along with that and the way that they're B2C and the way that different stores have different inventory and that kind of thing. Then going over to lifestyle and health and wellness B2C brands, where a lot of it's service oriented and they're selling introductory packages and new client trial and that kind of thing is also very different from what Ace Hardware was. And then being able to come now over to B2B side, where everything is to businesses and it's in the real creative and custom space, just expands that, gives you a whole different perspective. But at the same time, the fundamentals didn't change. So seeing that all the way through. And then my experience is also very specific in that I came into brands, especially at well-biz brands, when they were just establishing managed marketing programs. And when they were in the process of increasing their marketing funds so that they could standardize more and more of their programs, and doing the same at SpeedPro, building it grassroots from the ground up, where, at first you only have 10 locations who are interested in running PPC. And then you build it up slowly over time and add on to the program and add value and get the results and then sell it into more and more owners to be able to bring those numbers up to where the majority of studios can get the value from them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So given that, what's your hot take then on the future of Google and all this AI that's going on?
I'm a complete nerd, so I think it's a lot of fun to watch it. I like to mess around with it, and I think it's really good for generating ideas, for doing things that are kind of quick things or automated things. I do think it's going to drive a need for editors to go through and proofread all this and make sure that it's right, make sure that it's good to go. And so I love it. I love playing with it. I will say, though, that I am afraid to put any AI written content onto my website. And I am hoping that owners are not also doing that, because I think that it hasn't been determined yet, but there may be some algorithm updates in the future. You never know, that may penalize any kind of AI writing. So I'm very, very, cautiously optimistic there.
Yeah. Interesting. And so what tools are you using? Have you used like Jasper or Chat GPT, or which ones have you played with?
We have some owners that have been playing with ChatGPT. I've also seen so much of it on LinkedIn, and we've been just messing around with it internally on something like that. And iterations before that, Writer and some of those earlier versions that weren't quite as sophisticated, we kept a pulse on, but just very careful in having a human still be the main content driver.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, when I try to talk to my team about it or others in general, it's like, I don't know, it can help you get unstuck when you're trying to think of ideas or like get a first draft going. But at the end of the day, it's like your brand, your voice, like you need to put polish on, like you said, like like editors. So
Mhm.
I've been taking the like, yes, it can get you unstuck and like get you going. And then you have to like make it yours and your brand. So
Yeah, it's kind of just like getting a template or a rough draft or something like that.
yeah. So are there any other like big trends out there that you think marketers need to be on top of right now?
I think all of the creating experiences and everything being immersive and doing pop-ups and all of those kind of things, they're not new, but they're getting more and more popular and more involved. Where, before, if people would have just like a theme party, or they would have a booth and have something cool in their booth, those experiences are being ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. And you're seeing a lot of it just in terms of, cool events that are going on. And it's kind of like, well, we weren't able to do this for a while. So now everybody's going really big with experiential, in person kind of creating full immersive experience for their clients, even if it's just in a trade show booth.
Yeah. What's one of the coolest examples you've seen?
Oh, we've seen some really fun things. We work with a lot of agencies that are doing really fun, interactive kind of booths and interactive just activations and things like that. I'm also really liking this trend, and we've done some work in this trend of these immersive experiences in museums, like the Van Gogh exhibit. We did a lot of the window graphics and things for some of those, kind of where it used to be that you had to have the actual artifacts and the elements that people wanted to see. And now you can create this Van Gogh experience without having any of the actual Van Gogh art. And so seeing that trend kind of come up where you're creating something that people can get an experience without actually, where you can replicate that and scale it has been interesting to see. And those have gotten really popular lately. I think one of the big ones that's touring around now is the Sistine Chapel one. So there's some cool ones of these real immersive kind of museum experiences that are popular.
Yeah. I'll have to check that one out on. Awesome. Well, I have a few more questions for you before we close out. So just moving forward into like 2023, what other you've touched on a ton of stuff you guys are working on. Is there any other big initiative you have that you're working on for the year? I know you have an owners meeting coming up. Anything else that you're kind of front and center trying to work on?
Yeah, our main objectives are, continue on with our online lead generation programs and our email marketing and social media programs. And then this data transparency project that we're working on is going to be pretty big for us, bringing in consultants and trying to come up with this data lake process. And then we're also going to focus on hyper local PR and work with a new partner and, help owners kind of raise their personal branding and their local visibility when they have cool projects going on and when they're doing fun community outreach and things like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I always like to tell people that, when you're doing things in person or if there's anything physical happening at the local level, like digitize it too. Like
Mhm.
that's where a lot of local SEO comes from. Like they're going to pick up on what's happening in the real world that's transferred to digital that just helps with that digital visibility too. So that's cool.
Yeah. I offer all owners an opportunity to have photography or videography paid for at the
Nice.
marketing fund out of the marketing fund for any projects that they have. So anytime they have video or photography needs, we cover that so that we can be able to get those creative assets. And that really helps a lot to be able to showcase our work as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Nice. And then one more question is there any questions that I haven't asked that you wished I would have?
Ooh, I guess what some of the differences in franchise marketing are and what kind of makes that different than kind of some of the other brands out there, and specifically for emerging franchises where SpeedPro's been around for a long time, but we're still kind of in an emerging state with where we were with collecting the ad fund and our branding and things like that. And so the pain points are much different for single owner operator brands where, everything is grassroots and on an opt-in basis and, building that up, I think is sometimes overlooked or kind of forgotten about by the brands who are already able to do all these things. And there are brands out there that are able to flip a switch and to have the funds to be able to do the programs and have everything turnkey and control over the creative and be able to do all these things. And but for those brands that are not there yet, there is a path to be able to get closer and closer to being able to standardize more and to do more together as a system, but it does take a long time to build toward that.
Yeah. And it seems like in your 5 years there, that's what you've done a ton of is building those playbooks and programs of scaling from, where you were to where you are today.
Yeah, and so in going into IFA, we go, okay, who's doing this in a cookieless world and who's using ChatGPT and who's doing all these things? And I'm going, well, I'm still working on email.
Yeah.
So
The
like we're still,
foundations.
yeah, we're still on some of the foundational pieces that we're getting into place. But, at brands at all levels of this can kind of take best practices from each other.
Yeah. Yep. I love. And last question for you is what does being a great marketing leader mean to you?
I think being a marketing leader, you have to think as the consumer and the client and not as the brand and the brand leadership. And I think the more ingrained you are in being on the executive leadership team and knowing what the KPIs are and knowing what the owners want and knowing what the owners want to sell, you have to separate yourself from, okay, I know what the owners want to sell, but what is it that the clients also want to buy? I'll give you an example of when I was at Ace Hardware, we would go, okay, the owners wanted to sell the wood pellets that go in the grills. Okay, like the Traeger wood pellets in the grills, but they have to sell the grills in order to sell and we had to think about what is that whole customer journey, not just this is the one thing that I have the high margin on that I want to get the most out of. So
Yeah.
just being able to kind of look at yourself from the lens of putting yourself in the customer shoes instead of in the brand or the KPI or the owner shoes.
Yeah. Love that. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. It was great having you on, and I can't wait to meet in person at IFA. We'll both be
Thank
busy up until that event, I'm sure, but we'll be able to meet there and say hi.
Yes, that would be great.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on.